Oh, I'm too little. Let's get big. Boom. I'm big, big, big. Good day. Hello. Howdy. Beautiful children of China. That's what cowboys say. Howdy. Can you say that? Howdy. Howdy is what cowboys say. You know, the guys with the big hats and cowgirls that have the big hats and they ride. Actually, you know, some pioneers were cowboys. They have to be tough. They have to know how to work with animals. So we're going to talk a little bit about before the cowboys, there were the pioneers. They're the kind of earliest cowboys. Hello, beautiful children of China. It is your teacher, Timothy. Get the cobwebs out of your mind. It's time to learn something new. Just me and you. And George. Hello, George. Say hello to George. George. Hello. Hello, George. Hello, George. Let's see if we can see that. We can't even see that hardly. Let's just see what's going on there. Huh, we have to, it's not working very well. Let's move it down here. Oh, there, hello, George. That's how you spell his name. And look at, there's exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Hello, George. Woo! Okay, George, you're here. I'm going to light the candle and we're going to get started with our lesson. So you can see here, we have our little beautiful, beautiful candle. How lucky are we? How lucky are we? Remember now, if you have any, what are they called? Matches. Matches around, you need to make sure a grown-up is here with you because they can be dangerous. They're beautiful, but they can be dangerous. You could burn down all kinds of things like a house. Here we go, George. 1, 2, 3. That did not work, George. Help me out now. That did not work, George. Here we go. Oh! It's time to talk about pioneers. Pioneers, I'm going to say goodbye to that George right there, and we're going to say the word pioneer. This is a great word. You should learn, make sure that you remember this word, pioneer. Say it with me, pioneer, pioneer, pioneer. A pioneer is someone that goes and does something new that nobody has ever done before. Sometimes your family will have a pioneer because no one in your family has ever done something before. Like, I'd like to go sailing on the ocean. None of my family has ever done that before. And so I would be a pioneer in that way. It can mean that. It's kind of a poetic way of talking about people doing new things. But if you want to talk about historical, back in history, pioneers, now let me tell you, pioneers were very important in America, in the United States of America. I wonder if in China there were pioneer type people. I'm sure there were people that went off to a new land and started a new way of living. In the United States, there were definitely pioneers. Well, first of all, it's very important to remember, very, very important to remember that we in the United States, the first people that were here were Native Americans, and they still are here, Native Americans. And they were here thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Here, the Native Americans lived in North America. And they lived well, they lived beautifully, they lived very close to the land and close to nature. And then, sometime around 1500, people started to come here from Europe to the United States. It wasn't the United States then, it was North America. And people started to come from Europe on ships and to get to know the Native Americans. And sometimes that went well and sometimes it didn't. We're coming up to a holiday in the United States called Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving is a time to remember how the Native Americans, the Indians, helped the people from Europe to learn how to live here. And I got to say, a lot of Native Americans suffered because people came here from Europe. It was very, very difficult for them. The people from Europe at first were kind, but later did not treat Native Americans very well. So that could be a whole other lesson sometime, a history lesson about the United States of America. But today we are talking about pioneers. Now, after more and more people came from Europe, there started to be, a lot of people over on the East Coast. And so they started to talk about, where can we go? Where can we go? And people said, I know, let's go to the West. No one's ever lived there, especially on the other side of the Mississippi. Now, the Mississippi cuts right through where I live in Minnesota. I'm going to put 5 words up here that we can all learn. Our 5 words are, this is a good word when you're talking about pioneers, past, also century, also entertainment, also, and then just, that's future, and the last one, present. So here are our 5 words. I'm going to say them, and I'd sure like it if you'd say them right after I say them, okay? I'm going to say them, and then you say, I'll leave a little space for you to say it, okay? Past, century, entertainment, future, present. Again, let's see. Past, century, entertainment, future, present. Past, century, entertainment, future, present. So those 5 words we're going to talk about today. Certainly in the past is when there were pioneers that were going toward the West in the United States of America. In the past, that means long ago in history. A century ago, a century is 100 years. That's what that second word is, 100 years. I wonder what the Chinese word is for 100 years. You must have a name. A millennia is 1,000 years, isn't it? But a century is 100 years. How about some other ones? A decade is 10 years, isn't it? Yeah. Well, those 5 words, so we talked about the past, that's back in the past, back in history, back in the past years. A century ago, 100 years ago, that's the past. That's when pioneers were doing what they do, right? And let's take a look now at, I'm going to make my picture smaller. Goodbye, Tim. Oh, don't go completely away, but much, much smaller. And we will look now at our friends, the pioneers. Now, pioneers, they, gosh, this is so cool. I love this kind of thing. Look at this. This is called a covered wagon. A wagon has wheels, and a covered wagon, this is so that if it rains, of course, then this whole family right here can go, all of these people, whoop, they can go right in there. They can go right in there, and they can stay if it's raining, and it keeps them safe. This guy right here, this is probably their dad. He sits right in here, probably sits right here with his little feet. He probably sits right here, right there, sits here. And he could sit there and then he could help this guy, the ox. This is an oxen. Oxen is a kind, or they might just walk along the side down here next to the oxen. In some covered wagons, they sat in it and they drove the wagon with horses, and some were with oxen. With oxen, I think they walked along the side. You can see an oxen is a very strong animal, very loyal and strong animal, good workers, an oxen, right? But they're not real fast. And so on a day where they were traveling, they might go 15 miles or so. I don't know, something like that. 15 miles a day. Now, in a car, you can go 15 miles in 15 minutes. But back then, in the past, a century ago or more, it would take them a whole day to go 15 miles. Because the oxen was pulling the covered wagon. These are pioneers right here. Look at how they dressed. Look at how the women dressed. These beautiful long dresses, a little bonnet here for the sun. Here's a little boy. Look at his bare feet right there. Here's a little girl with her bonnet. She's kind of dressed like her mom over here. And this is the dad. And here is their oxen. I wonder what they named their oxen. And here's another guy. Maybe this is their uncle or something that was walking along with them. Or maybe this guy was going to stay back here in this house. And this is the family that was going to go. And maybe they left from somewhere on the East Coast, like Boston, Massachusetts, or New York City, or Washington, or one of those states, and Maine, or Vermont, and maybe they started to be pioneers to go to the West. They did not know where they were going. It was very slow. And it was, just think of an airplane. You know, an airplane can go all the way across the country of the United States in a few hours. A car, it would take a few days. And for people like this, pioneers, it might take a few months. If you think about 15 miles a day, then to go 100 miles, they would have to go for about a week. Maybe they go 100 miles in a week. And if they go 1,000 miles, that's going to take 10 weeks. 10 weeks to just go 1,000 miles. So that's only halfway across the country. Pioneers had to be very brave. And they had to know how to what did they do in there? What did the kids do inside of that thing bouncing along all day long? I wonder. Huh? Anyway, I'm so curious about pioneers. I think that is an amazing thing that they did, right? What did the kids do for entertainment? There's that word, entertainment. Entertainment means to have fun. What do? Well, now a lot of kids like to watch a movie. Or a lot of kids like to play outside, play soccer, or to play music, or to sing. Or a lot of kids these days, maybe they have a smartphone and it's not the best to have a phone. I don't think that's good, but a lot of kids do it, right? What do they do for entertainment? I wonder. Yeah, so these are pioneers. What an interesting life. Look at this. Here is a gun right there. Do you see this gun behind the guy? Right here. It's on the side of the wagon. This is a gun for hunting, so that if they need to, they could shoot a deer or something and get some meat and eat that deer, I'm sure. Right? And do you see a lantern? A little lantern is like this. This is like a lantern. This is a candle, but do you see a lantern on their covered wagon? Right here. There's an old lantern. Beautiful. Anyway, here are our pioneers. So one thing that you should know is when they moved out, when they finally went way out on the plains, what were they going to do? Well, they were looking for a new life, a whole new life. And I think to be farmers is what they wanted to do. And so they would go out onto the prairie. There's a famous story here by a writer named Laura Ingalls Wilder called Little House on the Prairie. And this is what her family did. They were pioneers. So let's look at the next picture. Now here is a house with some pioneers. They had gone all the way in their covered wagon, and then they stopped and they liked where they were, and they made a house there. They built their own house. They built their own house. What is this house made out of? Most houses are made out of wood. This house is not made out of wood, is it? What is this house made out of? Can you guess? Can you guess what that's made out of? I think that this house right here is made out of, do you know what this word is? Dirt. That's the earth. That's the earth, the dirt. I think all of this is sod. It's a sod house stacked up. The earth can be stacked up. They can put a window in it. The earth can be on the rooftop here. And they can make like bricks out of the earth. Because if you look around back here, look back there. Guess what? There are no trees. Like this is a tree, isn't it? A tree could be growing right here, right? But there are no trees. There are no trees here. So what can they do? They don't have wood to build a house out of wood. They don't have very much. They might use a little bit of wood here and a little bit of wood here, or maybe they brought this window with them from the East Coast. Maybe they found a little bit of wood here. But they don't have much wood to build these walls, so they have to use something else. The dirt, the earth. The only problem is if it starts to rain, if the rain starts to fall onto a earth house, a sod house like this, if the rain, do you know what rain is? You know, raindrop, if it starts to fall from the sky, guess what? It can start to make the whole house wet, and it can start to drip in. I'm sure of it. But look at these people. Here is the father. Here is the mother. Here is a boy, their oldest son. And here it looks like the next one, maybe a little girl. And then we don't know if this is a boy or girl, that one right there. So, and then they have, of course, the oxen. This is their helper, the oxen right there, a cow of some kind. Looks maybe like a cow. And here they have a stove pipe back here. That means there must be a fire in here somewhere, inside, and the smoke goes up, 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 and out there. There must be a fireplace inside there somewhere where they can stay warm. That's inside the house, though. So I went, I told you a little bit about Laura Ingalls Wilder, one of my favorite writers here from the Prairie Days, a pioneer. She lived in the past over a century ago. And she wrote about what that was like. And Laura Ingalls Wilder lived for a while in Minnesota, where I live, and they had a dugout house. That means that they took a shovel and they would dig down into the earth, and then they put a rooftop across it, and they had a hole in the earth right next to a little creek, a place called Plum Creek. And so they had a dugout house. I went to that house to look at it, where she actually lived, in the earth, because there weren't that many trees there. So this is what the pioneers did. How did they live? How did they build their houses? Out of dirt, a lot of them, many of them, right? And what did they do for entertainment? This is a good question right here. What did they do for entertainment? What was fun for a pioneer? Well, they like to sing. I like to sing. Whoa, how are you today? They sing songs like, I don't know, what songs did they sing back then? Old songs. Sometimes church songs, or sometimes they would sing their own songs. Sometimes one of them would learn to play the fiddle. or a guitar or a banjo. And they would all sing. They did a lot of singing, and we should still sing now. It's very fun. Another thing that they would do is they would have little pets, dogs. Maybe they would have a cat. Maybe they would have a cow like this one, and that was their pet. They loved it. Maybe some of them had a chicken for a pet. What do you think, George? George has a chicken for a pet. Lots of different things for entertainment. The kids like to run outside. That's been really fun for them, I'm sure. Well, this is how those pioneers lived. Now, the one thing you should know is a boy like this, did they go to school when they're that old? Yes, they would go to school. What was their school like? What was their school like? Well, let's take a look. I think the next thing tells us how their school is. Here we are. A schoolhouse. Way back in the past, a century ago or more, the kids would go to school and they had a one-room schoolhouse. Let me write that. That's such a cool word. A one-room school house. I wonder if you had those in China, one-room schoolhouse. Out in the country, this was common. The kids would go to school, and in this one room, here's the room right here. In this one room, there's just one room in here, inside there, and there was one teacher, and the kids would be little or big, and the teacher would have to have them all come in, and they would teach all the children at different levels. And the little kids would sit in the front, and the big kids would sit in the back, and the little kids would have little desks, and the big kids would have big desks. And they all were in one room. See here? Look at all these kids that were there. And this is probably the teacher right here. She looks like a teacher to me. Back in the past, a century ago. And what did they do at school for entertainment? Oh, they would play outside like crazy. They loved to play outside. They had games, and they would just run and play and laugh, just like any children in China or in the United States. They would have so much fun in the one-room schoolhouse. You know, a lot of them did not have pens. They certainly did not have pens. A lot of them didn't have pencils or pieces of paper. I mean, now in the present, there's a word right there. In the present, this time right here, we have computers. We have calculators. They didn't have any of that. You know what they had? A chalkboard. On the wall, there was a big chalkboard, but the children also had what they called was a slate. And the children could write on the slate with a piece of chalk, and then they could erase the slate and they could write again. And they all had slates that they would write on. That was how they, instead of having paper. I have actually a piece of slate right here. You can see it's a stone, really. I'll be right back. It's right over here. I'm picking it up right now. I have a slate. And children would have this kind of thing. It might be a little smaller than this, but this is a stone, and they would practice their letters on here, right? I could actually, I have some chalk. I didn't think about this until just now. But look. Here's my name, Timothy. They could practice their letters that way. Timothy. They could write on a slate like this. Let me write the name for your country, what we call your country, China. China. Yep. And so this is a slate, and the children all had these in those one-room schoolhouses. They sure did. They had them. And they would use them, and then they would just erase them, and they would use them again and again and again. It's so different than the present, than this time right now. And these children would then walk back home and they would talk to their mom or their dad about what school was like. And a one-room schoolhouse where all the kids went to one place. Huh, isn't that great? Just like they did a lot of things different back then, but they did some of it the same. They learned how to read. They learned how to write on those slates. And they had fun. They played. They learned, we say in English, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Arithmetic is another name for math and numbers. So they would do their reading, their writing, and their arithmetic, and that's what they would learn. Just like today, that's what the kids learn today. That's what you're learning. You're also learning English, aren't you? Well, let's continue on. Let's see what this one is. Ho. This last picture is really about what did they eat? What did pioneers eat? Well, they would have gardens and they would eat whatever they grew. They could plant corn, they could plant wheat, they could plant potatoes, they would plant veggies, they would plant beans, they would plant squash. They ate very well. Then they could make bread. They could make coffee. They could make pies. They could make porridge. They could make butter out of the cow's milk. Oh, they ate, I'm telling you right now, these pioneers ate very well. When the food is just right out of the earth, that's when it's best. Don't wait for a month or 2 or 5 or 10 in a can or whatever. Try to eat it right away, right from the earth, and the food is the best. That's when it's so good. And I'll bet that the pioneers ate very, very well. So let's look at our pictures again. I mean, our words again here. Way back in the past, that's when the pioneers were traveling. And then that was more than a century ago, 100 years ago. What did they do for entertainment? It was quite different than now, but they found things like singing, and they found things like playing outside with their friends, reading books. Now, if you went back to a pioneer, you would say, like, I wonder what it's going to be like in the future. And this, they would never know what we're doing now. The future is ahead in years. Like, we can ask, what if we went ahead a century? What if it was a century later than now? That would be the future, the future. And this right here, this is the present, right now. This is the present. So we're talking a lot about the past, the pioneers in the United States of America and the Native Americans that helped them a lot at first. Yeah. Anyway, I love talking about pioneers. That's really the end of our lesson. Can you believe it? George, can you go blow out the candle? We need to say goodbye to our friends in China. Come on, George. Oh, there you go. Yep, right. Get right in there, George. Lean in. Oh, good. Good job, George. Look at all that smoke. Whew. All right, George, you stand over there. Well, goodbye, my friends. It's your teacher, Timothy, signing off. Thank you for a good lesson. Now I'm happier. You are smarter. And the whole world is a little bit smaller. Bye-bye. Take care of yourself now.